Hello, founders. Welcome to another pitch deck critique and review. And this time we have Autarkic. I hope I am saying that correctly. And the question becomes, can this startup fix healthcare? Because we are dealing with lots of different issues in healthcare right now with Luigi Mangione. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And this is a really tough sector, ripe for disruption. And the question is, can we use decentralized networks? This is going to be pretty much a blockchain type thing. And I'm just going to let you know, spoiler alert, this is the spoiler for you here in this one. This is a very high concept deck. In other words, this deck has got a lot of really great ideas because of my experience with crypto and blockchain. 80% of my portfolio a few years ago was in crypto and blockchain. So I understand this space, but we need to simplify it for investors because this is going to be very heady and technically complex. So that's what I'm going to challenge this founder on, to do your idea validation, get feedback, and learn how to explain the story in a way the regular investors understand. This is more than pre-seed. Before pre-seed, I would say this is an idea validation deck. And this is important to understand because you want to make sure that you validate these ideas. If I'm the only one looking at it and giving feedback, then there's an issue, as much as I appreciate the opportunity to give you feedback. But I'm going to question whether you have battle tested your assumptions, you've gone out and gotten validation on the core concepts of this deck. And therefore, I want to challenge you with this, but I also want to encourage you that there's a lot of potential here, and this is very important. It's a worthy problem to solve. Before we continue, my name is Ed Kang. Welcome to Startups.com, my new home for pitch deck critique and reviews. If you're a founder out there and you want your own pitch deck critiqued and reviewed, stay till the end of the video. I'm going to give you instructions. If we've met before, welcome back. Use the chapter markers and skip right to the good part of the video and dive right in. If we haven't met, I'm a 7-time funded founder with 2 exits, and that just means I failed a bunch of times to your benefit because I use channels like this, and I am an advisor at Startups.com, the chief strategy officer. And we help people with their pitch decks all day long. I work with a team that has raised over $750 million for startups that have gone on and raised billions of dollars. I myself have raised over $100 million for my startups, other people's startups, as well as startup funds. And that's the reason we're here. And like I said, if you want your own pitch deck critique and review, stay till the end. If you're part of Startups.com, thank you so much. Stick around. Let me know. You get priority on the review. So just send me your deck and I'll make sure that we give you feedback. Let's jump into this blockchain-based healthcare solution. So right away on the cover page, you do not want to use words like revolutionizing. This tagline right here needs to be very simple, straightforward, and tell the investor what you're building in. And I was discussing this pitch deck with the CEO, Will Schroeder, and he basically said it would just been better by saying, we are improving insurance by putting it on the blockchain. Something straightforward just like that. Revolutionizing, this is a buzzy word, and things like innovating, disrupting, they don't really move the needle. In fact, investors kind of roll their eyes. So you want to stay away from buzzy, hypey, flowery language like this. But we got global insurance through decentralized networks. Again, you're worried that investors are not going to have the technical knowledge to understand this, and this is going to be a common theme through the rest of the deck. Now we get into the problem statement. It says, in the $6 trillion global insurance industry, trust issues, fraud, inefficiencies plague traditional insurance providers, leaving billions underinsured or underprotected. This is worsened by centralized control and unclear processes, driving up premiums, delaying payouts, and eroding user confidence. 4 billion people worldwide remain without adequate insurance, and 50% of claims face delays or disputes. What you've got here are a few good things. You're actually including hard numbers. This is very important. 6 trillion, 4 billion, 50%. I'd rather see a hard number. If it's 50% of this 4 billion, you want to say 2 billion. But what you're also doing is you're introducing your opinion and things that cannot be quantified. For example, you're saying things like trust issues, inefficiencies, leaving millions uninsured or unprotected. That's going to be a check mark because we can actually measure that. But when you say centralized control, investors don't know what you're talking about. You may know what you're talking about because you're talking about blockchain. I know what you're talking about because I read all the white papers and I'm a Bitcoin investor and I'm all about decentralization. But when you say unclear processes, driving up premiums, that's something we can measure. Delaying payouts, eroding user confidence, that's your opinion. And I understand it is the truth. People don't have confidence in healthcare, but you're not giving the investors something measurable that they can sink their teeth into to say, this is an opportunity. If you wanted to improve this, just be very straightforward. Let's say you got 4 billion people and you're saying 4 billion people don't have adequate insurance coverage. Because why? Because there's centralized decision making and they don't have access. They can't get approved. That is something that you can just say very straightforward. And you can also add, if these 4 billion people don't have insurance, that is a $1 trillion opportunity that's being left on the table. Insurance companies are missing out on that, but they won't do it because of centralized controls or because insurance uses old-fashioned hierarchical models, bureaucracy that slow things down. You see how I'm really drilling down? What is the problem? I want you to pick one problem because you have introduced so many different concepts. What are you solving for? Are you solving for inefficiencies? Are you solving for people who are underinsured or unprotected? Are you solving for the eroding user confidence? So then you better explain why. Or are you solving for the delays in the disputes or the fact that 4 billion people don't have insurance coverage like we have right here? You have to pick a concept because the more concepts that you introduce, the more confusing it becomes and the more chances that you have of losing that investor. Now, immediately, we have a problem. If you've lost the investor at the problem stage, then the investor, I'm not going to know whether your solution makes sense. Is it actually solving the problem? Even worse, you get in a market, I don't know who your market is because I don't know which problem you're solving. And if you just say everyone, such as the $6 trillion global insurance market, that TAM is way too big. Nobody's going to believe that you can tackle the $6 trillion market, or the fact that it's $6 trillion, you're too generalist. You're not going to know where to focus, and it becomes very hard to segment it down. So you'd rather segment it down like I know you have in this deck by saying we're going to focus on freelancers. That's what I've interpreted. But you should just say there are 1 million or 2 million or 10 million freelancers in the world that don't have insurance because of this, this, and this, which leaves this amount of lost opportunity for insurance companies on the table. And maybe you want to explain why, because everything's centralized and things don't approve because of these old bureaucratic models. I don't know what it is, and that's the problem. If I don't know what your problem is and it's not focused, I'm not going to know what your solution is, and therefore not going to know the market. And we could end this pitch deck review right here and there because an investor is going to stop looking at your deck. And I keep saying this over and over again. This is a worthy problem to solve. And that's why you should take these concepts and go out and get testing with other people and get feedback and let them tell you, yes, I understand the problem, or no, this is way too complex. And just pick one problem to solve because investors want to know what your beachhead is. So you use their little bit of money to go out and make a big amount of money and then go raise more money to make huge amounts of money. Let's continue looking at these other slides. But for those of you watching, understand that I'm already lost. And this pitch deck review is going to be a lot more difficult from here on in. Autarkic eliminates traditional insurance efficiencies by combining decentralized smart contracts with peer-to-peer risk pooling to deliver fast, transparent, and fair coverage without intermediaries. The best thing about this is the promise of delivering something fast, transparent, and fair. But you added so much to your problem. If you would have just said that insurance is slow, opaque, and is unfair, it cheats the system, then this would be a great solution slide. Without intermediaries, you could say the problem is intermediaries, or there's too much centralized management to make the insurance agency effective, or the insurance company, or the entire industry effective. But here's where we get confused. You're eliminating traditional insurance inefficiencies. What are those inefficiencies? You haven't established that. By combining decentralized smart contracts. This is where so many people go, why do I need a decentralized smart contract? What does that even mean? I've heard that as a buzzword in crypto and blockchain, but it doesn't mean anything to the regular investor. Same with peer-to-peer risk pooling. Nobody understands what any of this means, and therefore you're going to have investors really frustrated, and therefore you've already lost them, as I've been talking about, because the problem has not been properly defined. Now, here's the thing. I happen to know what you're talking about, and I understand. Let me give this a shot. To you founder out there, you're probably going to be jumping up and down saying, yes, Ed gets it. I get it. If you put something that's centralized, which has got bureaucratic insurance model, where someone can autonomously approve or deny a claim or basically change policies because they want better profits, and then when somebody complains they're delayed, they just lock you up and they delay, and it's not transparent and it's not fair. I understand. That's the same thing with finances, having something centralized and having people control your money and decentralized Bitcoin. The promise is there. And what you're saying is if we put everything on a smart contract and we get everybody to participate in a pool, and those smart contracts, those rules are put into place and they're transparent, we can analyze the smart contract language. We can go on chain and we can see how decisions are being made. That if someone makes a claim, that smart contract goes into action and it gets approved or denied immediately, and everything's transparent. And you could basically decentralize it. You could create a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, that basically approves or denies based upon these central rules, not humans, not people who want profitability, and not nefarious actors, which is getting insurance companies in trouble right now. How would I do? I probably understand it a lot better than other investors. And that's a fact. Most investors that are not invested in crypto or have the technical knowledge will not be able to come up with the conclusions, and they won't. I pulled that from my own crypto language, not from your pitch deck. I took the concepts and I said, okay, this is how I would make it work in my mind to fix the insurance industry, but you did not communicate that in the deck. Although it's a great idea, I understand what you're trying to do. That's the reason this pitch deck is going to fall short, and you need to get this pitch deck validated by showing it to other people. But let's continue on. Hundreds of millions lack access to affordable, transparent insurance across health, travel, climate risk, especially freelancers and underserved communities. Now you've introduced all these concepts. I get that you're saying there are millions that lack access to insurance. Great. How many hundreds of millions? You're not giving me an exact number. You're just ballparking it at this time. Then you're introducing health, travel, and climate risk, especially freelancers. When did we ever talk about freelancers before? Now, I know I mentioned it, but if you were to talk about freelancers right at the problem, this would be a no-brainer. You could just say 10 million freelancers don't have this. Now, the TAM doesn't make sense because, again, you're introducing all these other ideas: travel, disaster, microinsurance, and then you've got digitally native freelancers. Now I'm going to focus on this because you mentioned again, and I see that it's a theme, and you're capturing 0.1% via low-cost peer-to-peer driven risk pools. That means nothing. That's like your go-to-market strategy. That's your strategy right there. That's not going to work. So here's what you want to do. You want to focus your startup and say, who are we trying to serve? So let's say freelancers. Okay, so I'm going to make this easy for you. We're going to say freelancers, and I want to know how many freelancers that you've got times what you would be making in terms of money. So let's say that you are making $100 per freelancer per year, right? And then you've got 10 million freelancers while your TAM is now $1 billion. You see, that is what's called a bottom-up TAM analysis, not top-down based upon Gartner reports or statistics. You've got 1 billion. And then you're going to say, well, our SAM, our serviceable addressable market, which is a segment based upon your business advantage, strategic insight, or some type of geography that makes sense for your business model, we're going to say out of the 10 million freelancers, we're going to focus on the freelancers that travel to this country because there's the easiest to reach. You want to explain why. Or freelancers specifically in tech who are coding, who go to Bali, who go to these places and they sit in these nomadic regions. They sit in nomad digital freelancer communities, and you want to explain how many there are. So now let's say it's 1 million. We're going to say there's 1 million of them that we're focusing on at $100 a piece. That's $100 million opportunity, which makes you a unicorn if you're able to achieve that. You see how I broke down your TAM? I'm seeing that you haven't checked out my TAM SAM SOM model. Make sure you check it out, and all the videos that we have on it, that should explain to you what you need to do. Here's how it works. Users can instantly join and benefit from peer-to-peer insurance via decentralized smart contract platform. I get that, but that's inside technical knowledge. I know what you're talking about. Other investors don't know. Then you've got join a risk pool, and there's so many questions when you put this in there. How do we know? What risk pool? How do we know where the healthcare providers are? How do they join the risk pool? Then you lock in your smart contract. Great. Who sets up the smart contract? How is it set up, structured in terms of making sure that it's fair? But this individual, Emma, who's a freelancer, again, we're back to freelancers, contributes $30 a month. How are they paying? Are they doing it through a wallet? Do they pay by crypto? There are a lot of factors that go in, such as expenses. Moving crypto around is expensive. Transferring money to crypto is expensive. How are we governing this? Are there governance tokens? There are so many questions which show me that this is a very loose how it works slide. Submit a claim. Great. You pay out of pocket, right? What happens if they want to submit directly, the healthcare provider? And you take a photo of the receipt through the app. Now, what happens? The smart contract receives the claim request. A smart contract cannot read a receipt. There's a whole bunch of other technology that has to go into that. I personally use these programs myself, these apps, because of my insurance. They actually make me take pictures of my insurance, and then I have to type in what the claim is. Then you've got automated payout or dispute resolution. So the contract is verified, and then if everything checks out, Emma gets reimbursed automatically. How? Via her smart contract, via the wallet that she's using, or directly to her bank account. And that's going to require transaction fees. There are a lot of questions in here that you have not addressed. And I'm going to say you haven't thought this through. You got the general idea of what you want to occur, but there's so many details missing that any investor that generally has an idea of what's going on is going to ask you some really hardcore questions that you're not going to be able to answer, or you're going to get tied up on because you've said so much here that doesn't make sense. Now let's go into business model. Right away, I've got how many business models? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 business models, 5 ways that you're making revenue. I want to see a summary sentence saying this is the main way that we make revenue. Tell me what percentage. Tell me how much you're making each revenue. But let me just give you a big warning. In the world of crypto, I get it that you can make revenue in many different ways. But any founder that comes in and gives me like 5 to 10 different ways of making revenue, I get worried that you're going to be distracted. It is complicated. It is hard enough to get $1 from someone using one revenue stream or line of business rather than getting $10 from 10 different revenue streams piecemeal together. I want to know what is the main way that you are going to make revenue and how are you going to focus on this? And that's the important part about blockchain crypto, because I get it. You can do so many different ways, but just give me one sentence and explain to me and take a percentage transaction, because here's how I know you haven't battle tested it through. If I'm going to pay $30 for my insurance coverage, and I'm paying a membership fee on top of that, and I'm paying other types of transactions, that's not the insurance that I'm looking for. Now, you might be able to justify that and explain it, but have you tested it out? Is Emma, the freelancer, going to give you $30 plus $50 a month every single time, which is $80 plus whatever 5% or whatever you were going to charge on top of that? I don't think so. But I hope you prove me wrong by saying I've talked to 100 customers and they've told me that they would be willing to pay this if they got transparent free coverage, or basically it was that easy to use, or was on the blockchain they could pay with their stable coins or their Bitcoin or Ethereum. You have to tell me, because you've gone out and validated this with real customers. I don't think that you've done this. You could be proving me wrong. We'll take a look at this pitch deck, but already you've got so much information missing info. There are gaps that make me lose trust in your ability to think it through and to pull it off. And that's the last thing you want investors to do. And I know I'm sounding harsh, but you'd rather hear from me than hear from an investor and waste your shot to put this in front of an investor and have them say, yeah, this is not going to work. Take my feedback, put it in action, get it tested, and then go talk to the investors. Now we got a go-to-market strategy. So here's a strategy: platform partnerships, viral referrals, product-led growth, B2B to C integration, network effects. And you're explaining what you're going to do in each one of these and then why it works. Are these battle tested? That's what I want to know. I'm going to say not. How do I know this? Because you've given me a laundry list of the different tactics, and they are all over the place. And let me just tell you, network effects is not a strategy. Network effects, sure, is a byproduct of a strategy, but it's not something that you execute and you implement because it's already built in to your type of product. Anything with blockchain is going to have that built in, but you're making a huge assumption that bigger, better pools reduce the risk and attract more users. How do you know this? And if you've been around blockchain for enough period of time, you know it just doesn't actually pan out that way, or the solution would already be out there. And the flywheel effect, again, you're promising something that you haven't proven yet. So therefore, you want to clearly explain why you're doing something, and I want a very focused funnel where you're going to start and explain to me why, and use research and go out and battle test it. If you actually have tested it, you'll be able to say, yeah, we're going to start a Telegram. We're going to contact freelancers or contact people on Upwork or start a Facebook community and get those things going. And that's going to be a lot better of a go-to-market strategy than what we have here. Competition slide. This doesn't make a lot of sense for me. Example of use case: autarkic. I want to join an insurance pool in minutes. I want transparent pricing. Why do we have this here? This is what I'm looking for. So let's get rid of this, and maybe we'll transfer some of this information here. But we have the only solution that combines global access, decentralized governance, and fair risk sharing. And that's just a hyperbolic statement. So I'm going to get rid of this. I want to analyze the competition. So I have easy onboarding and setup. Easy is your opinion. How do we know? that it's easy? How do we know that traditional is not easy? Some people might claim that it is. Peer-to-peer risk pooling. I'm going to let you know that everybody is peer-to-peer risk pooling in the insurance industry. You're talking about peer-to-peer risk pooling using smart contracts, using stable coins, governance tokens. I don't know. I saw that you mentioned governance tokens, but you didn't explain on how it works. Therefore, I'm confused and I'm lost. Fast, transparent payouts. Well, that actually is something that's subjective. How do we know that this is fast and transparent, or it's not fast and transparent? So you want to put something like average 30 days, and you're going to say ours is like 1 day, something like that. Tokenized incentives and governance. This doesn't make sense because the rest of the pitch deck didn't make sense. Therefore, does a customer actually care that you've got tokenized incentives and governance? Maybe if the person participating gets to buy the governance tokens and vote on their own insurance, but you didn't explain all that. How do I know this? Well, I'm a crypto investor. That's the reason I can talk about this stuff. But everybody else, at this point in time, I say governance tokens, voting on your own smart contracts, voting as a decentralized autonomous organization. That's just going to confuse everybody. And if everybody else is confused, investors are going to be confused because they're not going to believe you're going to sell this to your customers. Here's the team. Mohammed, you're 21 years old. I love it that you're dreaming big, and I love it that you've got all this back-end experience. And this just proves to me that, yeah, you haven't thought through your startup as of yet, but keep dreaming and learn how to do this and get the feedback. You're going to be just fine as a founder if you continue to learn. Traction, 800 post impressions in 3 days from organic content. That's not traction. I don't know what those posts actually say. 300 professionals reach out on LinkedIn on early stage vision. I don't know. You've reached out, but have they responded? Or they said, Mohammed, leave me alone. Get away from me. I don't know this. You haven't given me proper traction. High resonance from underserved users. Is that actually measurable? How many? What does resonance mean? How did you measure that? Inbound DMs expressing interest decentralized. How many inbound DMs? What are they saying? I understand that you're trying to build the MVP, but how are you trying to build the MVP? That's something I really want to know as far as traction is concerned. Mohammed, what you want to do on a traction slide is you always want to have state of the product, right? And you want to have user validation and you want metrics, okay? And I understand that you've already put 800, 300, but those aren't metrics that actually show validation. Those are technically vanity metrics. Those metrics, they look good, they make you feel good, but they don't actually tell us anything. On top of which, you want to know growth. So if you're talking to 800 users, or you got 800 post impressions and 300 professionals, is that growing every single week? You say from 3 days, that shows momentum, but did you stop at 3 days? What's going on after the 3 days? And you've done everything you can to make this enticing, but it's not enough to get someone to give you the amount of money. Let's take a look at how much money you're looking for. Funding, you want pre-seed funds of $750,000, 12 to 18 months runway. By the way, never say how much runway that you're going to have. Makes you look like you just want to raise to stay alive to get to the next round. And you're going to say build and launch. And I don't know if this makes sense because you haven't told me the state of your MVP. And you've got all this allocation. It's way too complicated. This is taken for granted. Of course, you want to accelerate the product market fit, but just explain, I'm going to use this for staff. I'm going to use it for MVP, etc. I really want to know how much you need to build that MVP. And right now, with your level of traction, just saying, hey, I've talked to 300 people, I have some inbound messages, you're not going to be able to raise that. And I just want to give it to you really realistically because you're 21 years old and I appreciate your enthusiasm. Let me wrap this up by seeing if you've got any other slides here. Nope, that's your last slide. So let's have a talk. Mohammed, for your age, this is a fantastic crack at a startup with a moonshot idea solving a problem. Here are some other issues. I don't see that you have domain expertise, experience working in this problem. If you don't have founder problem fit, then there's going to be an issue. You don't have founder market fit, meaning that you don't know how to go to the healthcare providers. You don't have the contacts. I don't even know if you have contacts in the blockchain industry. You haven't explained what protocol that you're going to build on. So this is great, high concept. And I want to give you an A+ for dreaming about a way to solve a very painful problem. And that's what you want to do as founders. That's actually the first step, is to be the founder who looks at problems and say, how can we use technology to solve that? That definitely is founder problem fit. The next thing you need to do is go research and integrate yourself in the industry and get some experience, because investors aren't going to trust you if you don't have that. It's like, I know a founder and he has basically been building tools for lawyers for so many years before he did his startup. And a lawyer might help, but probably not, because he understands the problem. But he wants lawyers as advisors there now. And when venture capitalists say to him, well, how do you know about this problem? You're not a lawyer. you can say, yeah, this founder says, yeah, but I've been building tools for lawyers this whole time. Therefore, you have domain expertise and problem. And they'll say, great, we just want to see a lawyer on your board. Get a lawyer as an advisor, or a lawyer who's going to be eventual co-founder, somebody who's going to be on your team. And then that should be good enough, because it's not just important to have experience in the industry, but experience actually trying to solve problems in that industry. So if you really want to tackle healthcare, maybe you have a personal story attached to it, go into healthcare and start learning, or pick another problem and move into it. But I love the way that you're thinking. Keep putting yourself out there and taking these risks as a founder. I want to give you huge kudos, because while other people might criticize your deck, and I can see that happening, I'm going to say, if you've gotten to this point in time, this is the type of founder that I want to support. And this is why we're here at Startups.com, so that you get the education and that you have the dignity, the empathy, the compassion, you experience all that to say, I'm going to keep going, because I put this in my other videos. Never give up being a startup founder. If you have it in your blood, once a startup founder, always a startup founder. So do not be deterred by my words here. You should be encouraged to keep going and keep taking a hack at it. I look forward to seeing what you come up with. As promised, if you have a pitch deck out there, leave a comment and we are going to give you instructions on what to do next. And leave a comment on what you are building. It's very important that we don't say the same thing every pitch deck over and over again, that we actually give everybody a chance to learn from each other. So we want to make sure that you've done everything you can with your pitch deck, and then you go out there, we'll do a video on it, and everybody else can learn, and then everybody wins, because we're not charging for these pitch deck critiques and reviews. If you're part of Startups.com, you're a bona fide paying member in good standing, well, that's part of your service. We're going to give you feedback anyway. But for everybody else out there, if you want this done, just leave a comment, tell us what you're building, follow our rules, our process, because we get hit by so many requests to look at pitch decks. We just want to make it worthwhile for everybody else out there. Appreciate your time. Like I said, do the YouTube thing, like, comment, subscribe. Would love to know what you think, and we look forward to spending more time with you. Thanks for hanging out with me here. I'll see you in the next pitch deck critique and review.